How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
I'm glad. I wish I could be there. I'm very annoyed that I wasn't able to make it, but I'm so grateful for you.
But this is the second best version, anyway.
Right, exactly. Although I don't get some of that vodka that clearly you're drinking.
No. I would like to welcome you to this Swedish Crime Festival in Sundsvall. And we're very honored to have you with us all the way from Canada. And I will just make a short some introduction. You are a very popular crime novelist in many countries. Your books, especially about Armand Gamache and the Three Pines, have been published in, I think, 30 countries. I'm looking at you, yeah.
Well, 31 languages. So
31 languages, so more countries.
How many countries that is, but yes.
And they instantly top the lists when they are published, and you have received quite a number of awards. And as far as I figured out, you have published, all in all, 18 books in the series about Three Pines. You've also published a book with Hillary Clinton recently. And as you know, here in Sweden, the latest translated book is Hus av Glas.
Well, let me guess. Glass
exactly.
houses.
Exactly. It's a really good translation this time, I think. And this is number 13. So we have many more to look forward to there. And I would like to say something personal before you get the floor. To me, your books are very special. They're crime novels, but there is so much more to me. There is a quote, there is poetry, there is very difficult moral and philosophical issues. There are historical elements and something relevant about modern day society. So I think there are many difficult subjects, but it's still feel very comfortable to read about them, guided by you. So could you tell us, what would you like to tell us about the series, about Three Pines, or maybe about your writing? Very open question.
Well, I came to it later in life. I was 45 when the first book was published. I'm now 64. Armand is not aging quite as quickly as I am, and nor will he, for that matter. It was a dream of mine. I've wanted to write since I was a child, but I was afraid. I was born fearful. God, I was so fortunate I was given no reason to be afraid. I only had supportive, loving parents. But I was afraid of everything, including, as it turns out, failure. And so the one thing I really, really in my soul knew I wanted to do, and that was write, I was afraid of trying and failing. So I went into a sort of an ancillary career, and that was as a journalist. Which, as it turns out, I think everything really does happen for a reason. And that was a good thing, to listen to people, often in extreme circumstances, for 20 years and see how they behaved, how they reacted. And I saw it, as you have, as we all have, just immense anger and vitriol and outrage. But I also saw moments of grace, of forgiveness, of just such beauty. And that all feeds into the books, as it turns out. That ability to forgive, that love really does conquer hate. Yeah. The importance of kindness, all of that figures into the books. So that's really the core. You talked about the messages in the books and the morals, and that I really appreciate you saying that. Thank you, because that's important to me. Murder is a terrible, terrible thing, but it's an act. It wouldn't interest me to spend a year of my life writing about an act. It needs to be about more than that. It's about what drives that act, and often it's a moral issue.
Was it, why did you choose crime novels, that genre? Was it because of that you just told us, that it's an act, or was there any other reason?
I think, partly it's because I read small c Catholically, like I'm sure many people do. I read biography and fiction and nonfiction, literary and poetry. But I love crime fiction, and it's very well represented on my nightstand. Right now I'm reading Georges Simenon, at rereading, because he wrote like 2,000 of them. Who can remember? So it was a style that I understood, and it lends itself to the morality plays. But at the same time, it also allows for a really deep examination of human nature. And I think crime fiction is thrilling, and I think that we are entering, and have been actually for a while, and I don't have to tell you, with the amazing Swedish crime writers, that this is a real renaissance for crime writing. Very exciting time.
In the center of the books, you have of course, the character Armand Gamache. Could you tell us a little bit about him? I'm impressed in many ways how you created this character.
Thank you. I didn't think, between us, that the books would be published. I wanted them to be, but I knew the chances are pretty small. So I just felt that the writing of the book, the first book, Still Life, was going to be the only reward I get. So every decision I made was selfish. And when it came to the main character, I hoped and dreamed that it would be a series. So I wanted to create a main character who would have legs, we would be able to follow and want to follow. But I didn't want to create someone who, was at war with himself and so deeply troubled. And I didn't want to create someone, honestly, I didn't want to hang around with, because I would have to hang around with him for at least a year, maybe the rest of my life. So I created a man I would marry and gave him all the qualities I admire, not just in a man, but in a human being, the kindness, the integrity, the courage of his convictions. I mean, he struggles as well. He has his limits. There's a sense he has that he has insight where, in fact, he has blind spots that obviously he can't see. We can't see our blind spots. But Beauvoir, his second in command, is always very worried that something horrific is going to come out of the blind spots. And in fact, that does happen. So he's a flawed human being, but he is trying. He is recognizable. I think that's one of the things I enjoy about him. And in fact, he's recognizable because he was inspired by my husband, Michael.
Yeah, so you did marry.
I married him.
Yeah.
Oh, Michael was very pleased when he discovered that.
Yeah, I could imagine. So I was also wondering about Three Pines. It's a very special place. It's missing from the maps, and I think you had a special feeling about Three Pines, something you wanted to convey to us readers about
I did. And I mean, there are two things that inspired the village itself. The setting. I wanted the setting to be very much a character. And much like the Swedish crime writers, I wanted there to be no doubt that this is set in Canada, in Quebec specifically. And so I wanted to bring in the rich culture, the heritage, the history, the language, the cuisine that changes with the seasons. But the Three Pines itself as a village, I think why people respond to it internationally is it was created after 9/11. Much of what was created after 9/11. I think the world obviously was shocked by what happened. And I think it brought home to all of us that no place is safe. You can just be sitting at your desk and something horrific happens, walking down the street, on the subway, whatever, in a restaurant, minding your own business and something catastrophic happens. So there's no guaranteeing personal safety. Only thing you can guarantee is emotional safety. And that comes with community. That comes with a sense of belonging, with friends. We all want to belong to a tribe. And that's what I wanted to create with Three Pines after 9/11, was that sense of emotional safety, that when horrible things happen, and they always will, we're not alone. And that was important to me. Again, that was a selfish decision because I was afraid. And I've always wanted a community. And so I actually found it in real life, and I wanted to celebrate that in the fiction.
At least I can feel that as a reader. I read all your books in Swedish. Now, as a reader, you get pictures in your head, and this Armand and the Three Pines and so on. And I recently found out some exciting news for all of us who love your books, and that's a new television series that will start very soon, also broadcasting here in Sweden.
Oh my God, I was so afraid.
I'm just going to say
saying no, because I thought, nothing good's going to come of this. And then the people who produce The Crown, Left Bank, approached me. And we spent 2 years. I spent 2 years having lunch. Well, free lunches, you know, nothing wrong with that, for 2 years. And we talked about what they would do with it. And I was still afraid, but I thought, if I'm ever going to do it, this is the production company that will do it. And I said, you have to shoot it in Quebec. Yes, yes. And so it was in Quebec, we have a phrase, le beau risque, the grand risk. And that's what it was. It was like jumping off a cliff. And I continued to be afraid as I read the scripts and saw what they were planning. And then they announced, or they didn't announce, they came to me and said, what would you think about Alfred Molina as Gamache? And then all my fears disappeared. Because if you're going to get something right, he is the center that needs to hold. He is the moral, the physical, the psychological center of these books. Yeah. And you have to get that casting right. And they did. And I have to say, I've watched all 8 episodes, and he is luminous, transcendent. He outdoes even my expectations, and they were high.
And the rest of the cast and the Three Pines and everything.
Yeah, there is another cast, not just Gamache wandering around Quebec. Although I would watch that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they're all good. And what's great is that it's an international cast. It's Quebec actors, Quebecois and Quebecoises actors, and Canadian as well are very highly represented, and that was important as well. And they're all good. There's not a single one I could say, it's a little weak. Even the small characters are really very strong.
I really look forward to this series. Our time is running up, and I have to tell all of you that we're showing the trailer for this TV series several times during these days on the screens. So you will get a glimpse of what you can anticipate.
And it's playing in Sweden on Prime as well.
Yeah, on Amazon Prime, December 2nd, I think. The premiere.
December 2nd, exactly. Yeah. So watch it. We're all very excited about it.
Yeah. And in the meantime, start reading if you haven't. And for those of you who already love the series, read this one. And I'm sorry, we didn't have time to talk about this, but read and enjoy. And I would like to thank you very much, Louise, for being with us and talking about your books and the TV series.
Thank you. You've been so kind. And again, next time I'll be there and you'll be
That's
here.
a promise. Yeah. Great. Thank you.
Thank you.